who is surprised to find out that Trump is going mask off too early? I mean, you knew who he was. I knew who he was. MAGA knew who he was. But sort of the whole Trump strategy has been to skulk just low enough that the comfortable people of the world could pretend like he wasn't a problem, so they didn't have to do anything, frankly. But his eternal his eternal, oh, how do you call it, failing has been that he can't keep his damn mouth shut. He has no subtlety, especially when he gets emotional. Well, boy, has he gotten emotional lately. We talked about this on the channel previously. His plan for avoiding punishment has nothing to do with proving his innocence. Like a true conservative, the facts, the truth, it doesn't mean anything to him. The only thing that says whether he was right or wrong in the end, by his standard of morality, his very young, childlike stage of development that he's trapped in, is if he gets in trouble. So his plan to avoid trouble is to get the presidency again. Not necessarily win the presidency, just get the presidency again. And then order the Department of Justice to drop the case against him. That's his plan. Now that he's had some experience as the president, he really does understand how weak of a system we have set up. And he intends to tear it down. He's been pretty blatant about that. And recently, he used the word vermin to describe you, me, most of your families, and everybody with a soul in America.
Mask off moment for the disgraced, twice impeached, 4 times indicted ex-president. He is making his contempt for our democracy and its institutions and its people crystal clear once again. While President Joe Biden honored Veterans Day by laying a wreath and paying tribute to those who sacrificed for our country, the ex-president said this.
We pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections and will do anything possible. They'll do anything, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and to destroy the American dream. The real threat is not from the radical right. The real threat is from the radical left, and it's growing.
So first of all, isn't it funny how he cannot help telling on himself? He knows exactly what's up. He knows what we should be concerned about. What does he say? The real threat isn't from the radical right. He's in his own rally. Who was bringing up the radical right at his rally? You can just invert anything he says and understand what the truth is. So the real threat is the radical right. Here's what you can do about this, aside from writing your representatives and saying a ceasefire now in Gaza. Here's what you can do about this in particular. See all those punks behind him? Some of those are your cousins. Some of those are aunts or uncles. Some of those are co-workers. Start treating them face to face like they deserve. Somebody shows up with a Trump 2024 sign. They are telling you that your vote doesn't matter, democracy should go away, and you are a target for their oppression. They intend to utterly do away with your political voice. treat them like they just said that to you, because they have. They've been getting a pass. I don't know why, but they have been getting a pass. Look at that. Peace through strength. Okay. Show them your strength. It should be uncomfortable for them to walk around out in the world. It should be like wearing a Hitler hat, a I Heart Hitler hat. For that matter, wearing a Confederate flag hat should be the same thing. They're saying, you black people. I don't think I have let somebody pass through my line of sight wearing such an insulting garment without comment. Harsh and direct, looking them in the eyeballs. I recommend you adopt that. We should not have harmony with these people. They should not be allowed to wander around thinking they've got their own political opinion, and that's their truth, you know? You've got your truth, which is that, you know, there should be democracy and decency, and I'm living my truth. There is no such thing as your truth, my truth. That is some nonsense hippies like to say when they don't have anything to say, actually. And hey, I've used the phrase. Don't get yourself down if you use it. I've used it too, but it's a dumb phrase. We need to live in a world of objective facts. And we cannot allow them, the filth behind this guy, to go on thinking they've got a legitimate political stance. They don't. They have a fascist stance. After this speech, anybody wearing any Trump regalia, any fashy nonsense should be addressed like the fascist threat that they are. Be uncomfortable. Make the room uncomfortable. Tell them to go to hell. Tell them they're not welcome in your presence. If it's in your home and they try to enter it wearing that stuff, tell them to turn on their heels and go. In your place of work, say, I'm not going to sit down next to this person all day, tippy typing like they don't have a shirt that says "F you, Jerry" on it, and you're Jerry. Address it.
Every day, every single day, the threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within. Our threat is from within.
So you know we have a high bar when we show that to you. Today it's important, and here's why. When an ex-president who sought to overturn American democracy claims in a speech like that in front of his supporters that Americans right here at home pose a greater threat to our country than any of our adversaries abroad, and describes his political opponents as, quote, vermin, it naturally leads to comparisons to other authoritarian leaders. Washington Post spoke to two historians who had this to say, quote, the language is the language that dictators use to instill fear. That was Timothy Naftali, a senior research scholar at Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs. Quote, when you dehumanize an opponent, you strip them of their constitutional rights to participate securely in a democracy because you're saying they're not human, and that's what dictators do. Ruth Ben-Gayat, a historian at New York University, said in an email this, quote, calling people vermin was used effectively by Hitler and Mussolini to dehumanize people and encourage their followers to engage in violence. Now, in a statement to NBC News, a Trump campaign spokesperson rejected the comparison to Hitler, calling it, quote, ridiculous, a ridiculous assertion, but then said this about Trump's critics, quote, their sad, miserable existence will be crushed when Trump returns to the White House. Of course, either wittingly or unwittingly proving their point. Now, Trump's comments are also...
Just to be clear, it's not the name calling I have a problem with. It's the fact that he said, root them out. we're going to go after him. That's the thing to have an issue with. Now, granted, the fact that he chose a word famously used by the Nazis tells you specifically how uncreative he is. But, you know, I don't think it took a whole lot of guessing to know what he was thinking anyway. But he's made it clear. That's the plan. That is the plan. If Trump wins in 2024, that's the game for democracy, most likely. I realize David Feldman thinks, oh, no. There will be enough people in power that will resist. I don't think so. Look how far we fell in 4 years. We had Michael Flynn ready to lead the armies of the devils. No. I think that's it if he wins. So guess what? Great news. If that gives you just a little ping of fury, good. It does for a lot of people. And we are likely to win. But we cannot slip even a little bit. From now until 2024, we need absolute commitment to full victory. And this has to be the end of this organization of traitors for all time. Enough with these punks. We've had going on 100 years of this nonsense with the Republican Party. Enough.
A reflection of an ex-president right now, in this moment, who has become, believe it or not, more erratic, more unstable, more uninformed, if that's even possible, than when he was in the White House. He's now totally and wholly consumed by conspiracy theories and dead set on relitigating his defeat and the January 6th insurrection at the cost of the Republican Party having any last fingers or grasp on their integrity. Who Donald Trump is now and the vision he and his allies have for the country right now is drawn in extraordinary detail in John Carl's brilliant new book, Tired of Winning, Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party. John Carl reports that months after he left the White House, Trump became obsessed with the idea that was circulating on the far right that he could somehow be reinstated as president, despite the fact that members of Trump's own family and even ardent Trump supporters like Jenna Ellis had dismissed the theory. Quote, one person getting their hopes up was Trump himself. One of Trump's relatively junior aides at Mar-a-Lago told me that he was so concerned about how much Trump was talking about it, he urged the former president to give it a break. Quote, if you really think it's true, then stop talking about it. Just let it happen, the aide said he told Trump. If you keep talking about it so much, people will think you are crazy. Here's what the ex-president had to say to John Carl.
When you had a release recently, you said 2024 or before. What do you mean by that? You don't really think there's a way you would get reinstated before the next election, do you?
I'm not going to explain it to you, Jonathan, because you wouldn't either understand it or write it.
It's above your head, said Donald Trump to John Carl. An ex-president and current Republican frontrunner with an authoritarian vision and plans now on paper for the future of the United States is where we begin today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. He's the chief Washington correspondent for ABC News.
You know, I should be able to remember this off the top of the dome, but I don't. What are those plans? Isn't it like the 25 something a traitor organization, so a Republican organization, recently released a game plan for what to do if Trump gets in office again. What are they going to do? And it basically involves dismantling democracy. It shifts all power to the president, takes power away from you and me, and ensures that we can never, ever choose our leader again. They want to undo the American Revolution. Listen, if you ever have people saying that, oh, we're all the same. Oh, all the political parties are the same. Just cease listening to that person, and maybe grab him by the ear and educate him, because the Republicans have somehow come within a hair's breadth of taking over the entire country on the I'm rubber, you're glue platform. Everything they do, everything they are, they accuse others of being, and it works. They do hate America. They do hate freedom. They hate you having a say in how things go. They hate you being able, you, a lowly peon, a peasant, a serf. They hate you having any sort of say in how your life goes. What they want is for you to put on a collar that is attached to a chain, which is held on the other end by your boss. And that person sometimes allows you to go to your home quarters on the slim chance you might have the energy to reproduce and make another worker for them, who will be their property, of course, because they own you. And the only person that boss man answers to is the boss man above them, who holds their chain all the way up to the top. And their version of paradise is to only have a couple of people in the fashy links above them. That's the world they've been working hard to make. And we have allowed for too long there to be polite conversations about this. There should be conversations about this. This is how we should deal with it. It's through conversations, just a series of conversations. However, they should not be polite. We should take it as an insult, what they intend to do. And the people who support them are insulting us. And we should make that clear.
His latest book, Tired of Winning, Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party, is out tomorrow. It's the most important thing that's been written to date about what is in front of the American people in the next presidential election. Also here at the table, former top official at the Department of Justice, Andrew Weissman, plus former congressman from Florida, David Jolly's here. Betrayal, in my opinion, was the roadmap that the January 6th Select Committee agreed was the roadmap for investigating how January 6th happened. This feels darker, if that's possible. This feels like the roadmap that Donald Trump would use to turn our democracy into something really different. What he envisions, what's out, what's being covered. I think the excerpts from your book put in motion a little bit more of a reveal from the Trump camp. And these are plans on paper.
Yeah, look, I think the January 6th committee did a tremendous job of describing what January 6th was all about. The prosecution we've seen at the federal level in Georgia have outlined all that Donald Trump did to use the powers of the presidency to try to overturn American democracy, to try to overturn a presidential election. But this is darker, because what this is not trying to explain what Donald Trump did on January 6th or in the weeks leading up to January 6th. This is looking at what he would do if he were to get power again. And I
just want to say, I'm looking through some of those comments. Fantastic. I can't wait to see them. But let's let these cats finish up. I want to see what the ultra comfortable are doing. I want to see these people just now getting nervous about this. Just now, finally, getting nervous about this. It's amazing to me watching these pampered cats yowl at the sight of the slavering, mangy beast shuffling up the long driveway. Because it's almost at the door, and we've been barking this whole time.
I firmly believe, and I think the research in this book lays it out, that Trump is going to be more determined to upend the norms and the customs that make democracy possible. He is going to have fewer restraints, no real guardrails. I think January 6th is basically a starting point, not an end point, if there is another Trump presidency.
I think there's ground that's covered in betrayal where you reported, let's deal with Hitler, okay?
Okay.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity, right? People like General Kelly were like, oh, you must not get it. You must not mean Hitler's army, right? I mean,
he would talk about the brilliance of Hitler's generals.
Correct.
General Kelly, yes.
Correct. And you've got some reporting about Merkel. I want you to explain that. I'm going to read that. But tell me how Trump sees Hitler.
Well, Trump clearly has this infatuation with strong leaders. He thinks that's good. They must be brilliant. They must be smart. This is why he actually was praising Hezbollah recently for being smart. But he talks about
really smart.
Let me anti-praise these idiots for being dumb. Stop saying Trump really praises. He really likes strong leaders. Do you mean strong? Do you really not talk to regular people ever, Carl? Wallace? Do you not talk to normal people? Do normal people describe Hitler as strong? What about Kim Jong-un? Are they like, oh, what a strong guy, that guy. He's strong. No. That sack of dough is not strong. No. Hitler was not strong. I don't know what this person imagines they're saying, but they're not saying it. These jackasses need to pick better words. Strong. Ridiculous. Trump, by the way, was not strong. Do they mean a strong man? One word? Maybe. But it's hard to say. No, Trump likes authoritarians. He likes fascists. He likes dictators. Use those words. And the reason you should use those words as opposed to strong is because they are accurate, you silly little man. By the way, I would like Nicole Wallace to interrupt him and say, find a word other than strong, Carl. That means nothing.
That's what he said about Hezbollah.
His praise for Kim Jong-un, for Putin, for Viktor Orban of Hungary. I will get to the hit.
Now, since he's stumbling, I'll jump in here. Here's how you can tell if you're using the right word for the situation. I genuinely find this helpful in news writing. Find the opposite word and ask if it's still what you mean. So, what's the opposite of strong? Weak. Should we be praising weak leaders? No. We should not. Now, I realize here I am yelling at center-left news types about a far-right authoritarian, but he's there because they can't communicate to the masses. And they can't communicate to the masses because they don't live amongst them. Oh, I don't even need the ST. They don't live among them. They live in like $1 million apartments in New York. That suit he's wearing is fresh from the dry cleaners. They don't do grocery budgets. That's not a thought that enters their head, is how much food costs, can I afford it? That has not entered their head probably in their adult lives. We should be very concerned that the people who speak to the most Americans collectively have no idea how an American lives. And you even hear it in their language. So they're trying to tell you why Trump is bad, why Trump is flawed. And they wind up with this nonsense. But okay, let's assume that instead of strong, what he means is authoritarian. Pathetic.
Hitler, this amazing interaction that he had with, that he recounted that he had with Angela Merkel. I mean, he wants to be seen as a big, strong leader. He wants to emulate these people. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a Nazi. I'm not. But there is this infatuation that he has, and he echoes his language. I mean, that's when you were talking. You know, when he talks about rooting out the vermin. Even the phrase "the enemy of the people," which he used to describe the press, is something that is drawn from Nazi Germany. It's also drawn from Stalin. This is a dictator's phrase, and it's one that he eagerly embraced. Does he know all the history of it? I don't know, but the parallel is clear.
But see, here's why I don't buy the ignorance anymore, because an ignorant person, when warned that Hitler used to call Jews vermin, would stop.
Yeah.
Trump's turning up the volume.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you know, I remember a conversation I had with him when we had the mass.
Too much of a weakling to be firm on that. Oh yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, I had a conversation with him. I was in the same room as him, and I didn't call him a cunt. And during that time, when I failed to call him what he is, it's frustrating to me to watch these house cats try to sort through their first look at reality every time it happens. Like the first time they look at the truth of a situation, and it becomes so obvious that they cannot keep ignoring it, and they cannot go back to trying to convince their audiences to just stay home and be quiet and watch their television show. It's amazing to me to watch them struggle to describe the reality that they've been telling us to ignore. And it's amazing to me because when they tell us to ignore it, when they tell us we've got it, no, the thing to do is just stay home and just stay quiet and just stay obedient. The assumption that the regular folks who listen to them make is that they were aware of these things. They were aware that there are people in MAGA hats skulking around polls and harassing anybody they think they can get away with harassing, and calling in fake incidents to the police in an attempt to get a black person killed, and wearing Confederate flag hats to terrorize black children who happen to see them, and to make an awkward moment for a black family that happens to see that hat. So they have to turn and answer their child's question of what's that? These effing nothings who get paid ludicrous amounts of money to pacify the population ought to be ashamed, first of all. And second of all, they should use that shame as motivation to be better. I hope folks like Nicole Wallace are before bed every night looking in the mirror and asking themselves, how did we get here? And I hope they realize that the answer is that they took their $1 million apartments and they took their very nice beds and very fancy cars in exchange for propaganda. Status quo, centrist propaganda. Essentially saying, ignore that splotch on your skin. Do not go to the doctor. Do not get a biopsy. Ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. I know it's getting bigger and miscolored and misshapen, but ignore it, because I am paid to tell you to just stand by.
shootings in El Paso and in Dayton in short order. And there were real concerns that there would be copycats, there would be more. And he was using this language, again, this language out of the Third Reich, of enemy of the people. And I said, aren't you concerned that people will take your words to heart? Aren't you concerned that they'll act on them? And without missing a beat, he said, I hope they take my words to heart, because I firmly believe the press is the enemy of the people, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know, maybe it's an inability to have any kind of empathy or understanding of the consequences of your words, but that is consistent. I mean, that is not new with Donald Trump.
Let me read the Merkel stuff. Okay, it's from the book. One prominent member of Congress, a Trump ally, told me that the president on 2 separate occasions claimed Merkel had complimented him on the large crowds he attracted when he spoke. Quote, she told me that she was amazed at the sight of the crowds that came to see me speak, Trump told the Republican congressman. Quote, she said she could never get crowds like that. In fact, she told me that it was only one other political leader who ever got crowds as big as mine. Only one in history. The Republican congressman couldn't believe the insinuation was lost on Trump. And
it's easy to forget that he is also dumb. And I say this with some qualification. As a well-known idiot myself, you know, I smell my own. He a dummy. But unfortunately, he weaponizes that stupidity, because he's fine with people he's going to have killed, calling him dumb because or thinking that he's dumb, because he's not quite as dumb as he lets them believe. And he's fine with them being on his enemies list because he has a plan for that enemies list. And they, ironically enough, are just dumb enough to let him enact it.
Thinking, you told me while recounting his interaction with Trump, you know who she's talking about, right? Take me behind that. Take me inside.
I mean, this is, first of all, this is a very prominent
him.
member of Congress who was very close to Donald Trump, who was absolutely blown away by this. Because clearly, if, you know, who knows what Merkel actually told Donald Trump, but he's recounting the story. Right. The Chancellor of Germany telling him, only one person could get crowds like yours in all of history. It's obvious what she is trying to talk to him, because Trump's bragging about his crowds, saying, I mean, so I don't know. This ally felt that Trump enjoyed the idea of being compared to Adolf Hitler. At least the aspect of Adolf Hitler attracting all those huge crowds.
Huge crowds.
Just had to qualify it in the end. Well, at least just, you know, the crowd part is what he liked about it. No, you asshole. What did we just talk about? He's using Hitler's speech. He's a fan of German generals from World War II and wants his generals to be more like that. Wink. Let me give them this piece of sympathy. Admittedly, if I had worked my way up to being a fancy newsman by 2015, I was at a national desk, I might think, well, the thing to do is do my thing. Just really hard. Really, really defend the status quo. Really, really get in there and tell people to, hey, try to compromise with Republicans in the legislature. Maybe that's what I would think. I don't know. But the real problem here is no longer the legacy media. That's going away, and the format of the live stream, essentially talk show, the live stream news show, is replacing it. Good. And that's good because you guys can fact check in real time, and do, in fact, fact check in real time. And there's debates and internet scandals and all those things which have a lovely way of weeding out the worst. I don't think Tucker Carlson will I don't think the Tucker Carlsons and Alex Joneses of the world will hit quite as hard 10 years from now when average people are online as the majority. But in the meantime, we have traitors to deal with. I would like to go into reading comments, but I would like to first remind you all, do not let people who support this guy get away with showing their support for him without your 2 cents being added. If they let you know in any way, shape, or form that they're pro-fascist, you let them know you're anti-fascist, and they ought to change their tune. Because they are coming after you. They're announcing that they are coming after you when they announce their support of this guy. And if they don't know that's what they're doing, you get to say, I have some very important news for you. I have some updates that you need to be familiar with. And we're not leaving this room until you make it clear that you're going to turn that shirt inside out, go home, find a different one, and then burn that one. This is... Republicans are allowed to behave in an inverse way to lefties. The people on the left, if we sneeze wrong, we get quartered. Drawn and quartered. The opposite is true with Republicans. Oh my gosh. Fan funding, my word. Donald James, member for 1 month. Hello, my friend. Thank you so much. If Trump gets reelected, he will actually evolve into God, the most powerful entity in the universe. Listen, I don't think he has the ability to absorb enough warp energy in a sustainable way. I think, frankly, he wouldn't even be able to form the black shell. I think he would simply be pulled into a million little particle pieces and absorbed by the 4 chaos gods. Gulf Coast Grit, boom. All my federal legislators have been contacted. Ceasefire now, my man. Heck yes. Gulf Coast Grit, that was easier than I thought. Yeah, it's not too bad. Write an email. You copy the body of the email. You go to the next one and the next one and the next one. It's a hell of a thing. Thank you, my friend. Oh God. Let's read some of these comments from earlier. Unfriendly atheist. Yes, Jake, now you get it. Don't be friendly with any conservative scumbags. Yeah. And let me say this. I am okay with being friendly to conservatives on general principle. I understand how you become conservative. In America, we're talking about. I understand. I don't even think that in and of itself, the philosophy of not wanting to change quickly is wrong. There's a hell of a difference, though, between having a political philosophy and wearing a MAGA shirt. If anybody is pretending like wearing that MAGA shirt means anything other than they are anti-democracy, they're either lying or they are remarkably gullible. And you would not be doing them a favor by ignoring it. Oofa doofa. PNC Bio, he's using Nazi language and pulling a Hitler and laying it all out ahead of time. Is it really going to be that hard to explain to people that this is bad? Shouldn't be. And I don't think you're going to convince anybody with the conversations you have. All you're going to do is make them realize that when they wear their gear out in public, they become a pariah. They run into problems. They get the stink eye. And they have awkward conversations and they get yelled at. And that should be their experience. You're training them to be to have the correct expectation to have the expectation that the correct reaction to their plans for you and your family's freedom it is a good thing to make them uncomfortable. They ought to be uncomfortable. It's very important that they not feel comfortable taking away your freedom. Pinkerbell, oh my God, these people on screen are deeply unserious. Yeah. And Nicole Wallace has been doing better lately, I thought. But it's just, it annoys me when I'm reminded how separated from reality they actually are. Michael Skiles, didn't he even say that you have to have an ID to buy groceries? Yeah. Speaking of separated from reality, yeah. PNC Bio, we've come a hell of a long way from welfare queens and lower taxes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Wisher King, hello, good to see ya. Shade Dragon, this is sad. This makes me believe Trump actually can read and just chooses to read only Mein Kampf. Luke, like other people, think he reads the Bible. Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. The anti-corporatists, it's easy to get crowds when not showing up will get you killed. Easy to get crowds when not showing up will get you killed. That's interesting. I'm not aware of what you're talking about there, but intriguing. Pinkerbell, Stephen Miller quotes Hitler when he's trying to gas up Trump. This is my theory. I fully believe that. Stephen Miller I think he's an out and proud white supremacist, isn't he? Regardless, he's a white supremacist. The anti-corporatist, I couldn't see him reading more than a couple pages at a time, and even then, he wouldn't understand more than the surface meaning. Oh, no, I'm sure he didn't actually read anything. I'm sure he's just got a vague notion. Hitler was the guy that killed Jews, and nobody was allowed to question him, and since killing Jews means nothing to Trump, to him, Hitler was just a guy that no one was allowed to question, and that's what Trump wants to be. Gulf Coast Grit, conservatism has been on the decline for quite a few years now. That ship sailed with millennials. Hell yes. Hell yes. I gotta tell you, it was both good and bad. Growing up, it was very clear what is happening with Gen Z now was also happening with millennials, and it looking at the why of it was just so depressing. We would have fallen for the same stuff as the generations before us, except that it was running out of steam. The reason their policies were bad was because they were bad. The reason their policies were bad was because they didn't work. They didn't do the things they said the policies were supposed to do. And my generation, of which I am on the later end of, or earlier end of, whatever, I'm older, for a millennial. We were the first where it was just undeniable, where Reagan's Reagan's pitch for economics was just clearly shown to be nonsense. And from there, I mean, the rest of it came apart. In even early on, I remember people saying, "Well, I'm a social liberal and a fiscal conservative," which was a way of saying I don't hate black people, but I still vote for people that hate black people. So once you took out the fact that fiscal conservative just means wait, listen, I don't hate black people, but I am terrible with money. That's what that ended up. That's how it hits millennial ears. And it should be. I mean, they have no sense of how to run anything. Rex Trek, says, "Aw man, late, toked boomer, hi all, good to see you, my friend." Soul Life, Mike Pillow smokes coke with Trump Jr., I would believe that. Tinkerbell, becoming an adult right around the time Occupy Wall Street happened, kind of kicked it off. True. And it happened because, in my opinion, I bear in mind I have no degree, and I attended a community college. I think I have an associate. I don't know. But understand my lack of education here. But I do, just having lived through those days, I believe Occupy Wall Street was the manifestation of people realizing Reagan lied. And that these bank bailouts and all this neoliberal nonsense was just a way for the rich to steal our money, time and time and time again. It shouldn't have taken as long as it did. It shouldn't have had to hit the middle class like it did before people in the middle class started listening to the people that got hit by it first. But of course, just like people think that violence isn't the same when it hits brown people, financial problems aren't the same when they hit poor people. Unfriendly atheist. Buddha wasn't a Buddhist, and Jesus wasn't a Christian. They never joined any cults. True. Maybe. Wait, was Buddha? Yeah, Prince Siddhartha for sure. The Buddha was not. Soul Life. Junior does a line, and Mike Pillow says, "Let me show you how the big boys do it." And then he pulls out a gold-plated initialed stem and pocket torch. Whoa, Jesus. Metal 1. Unfortunately, the alt-right used the manosphere to get the Zoomers and the Red Scare to get the older folks. So those groups regained their rep stronghold status in 2020. I don't think the manosphere got quite as many Zoomers as people think. One of the interesting things that happens with young people trends is they tend to come to their conclusion quickly. So if you're the kind of fella that follows Andrew Tate, you're either in prison, like Tate, by your early 20s, or you're embarrassed that you were ever a fan of Andrew Tate. Oh, I'm still recording this. Tell you what, gang. If you enjoy this kind of talk and you like the extended conversation, check out the live show. We talk quite a bit all the time. But that was it. That's all I had to say on Trump. Now let's talk about the rest of these clowns.